Hi, this is Joy Robertson. As many of you know, I love food. I love finding new restaurants. I love trying new dishes. And most of all, I love talking to the many great restaurateurs and entrepreneurs we have here in the Ozarks and beyond. I love hearing their stories, and that's what this podcast is all about, learning more about them and their journey. So join me as we savor the Ozarks. This episode is brought to you by Arctic Food Equipment. Today, you are in for a real treat. I am with Wing and Ling Leong of, you guessed it, Leong's Asian Diner. Guys, it's so good for you to take time to talk to me today. Before we get too much into your history, I want one or both of you to do me a favor and tell me about your dad, David Leong, who started all of this, and the signature cashew chicken that put Springfield on the map. Who wants to start talking about your dad?
I can start talking about him. He came to the United States from China to make money for his family because China was such a poor country at that time. And he moved here, 1940, and had $2 in his pocket. And soon after that, World War II broke out, and he got drafted in the U.S. Army and wound up landing on Omaha Beach on D-Day. And fought for the U.S. Army. He was on the fourth wave of the. He was a combat engineer, so he had to defuse the mines and cut through the barbed wire and stuff for the other soldiers to get through to the beach and everything. So he had a wild history in World War II, and then after World War II, he moved back, came back to the United States, and worked in several different restaurants. He worked in I think Philadelphia. He worked in someplace in New York. Also. He was in New Orleans, and then finally he was working in a restaurant in Florida around Pensacola when the famous neurosurgeon Dr. Song happened to stop by. He was on vacation. He ate there where my dad was working. After his meal, he wanted to speak to the chef. And my dad came out and he asked him, he told him that was the best Chinese food he's had since he left China, and convinced my dad to move to Springfield, and he'd help him open up a restaurant. So that's how he got to Springfield. But, throughout when my dad was in the war, he had learned a lot of cooking from his mom and dad, and when he was working, when he was in the Army, one time the chef got sick, and they asked who could cook, and some of the guys said, well, the Chinese boy can cook. So they recruited him to cook in the kitchen, and he cooked the meal for the soldiers, and it just so happened the colonel happened to come in and eat with the soldiers that day, and afterwards he asked, who cooked this meal? And they said, well, the Chinese boy did. And he told them, well, after this, you're no longer cooking for the soldiers, you're cooking for the officers.
Oh.
So he even had one of his guys that he was in the Army with told him that, if you'd been a woman, I would have married you,
So, Ling, is that when your dad figured out that those American soldiers would eat about anything if you put gravy on it? Do I understand that correctly?
Well, sort of, but when my dad came to Springfield and he yeah, at that time, the majority of people in Springfield didn't know what Chinese food was, and he noticed that there was a lot of restaurants, American restaurants at that time, that served fried chicken. So that was real popular then. So he took a version, after he opened up the Leong's Tea House. He had a bunch of people from City Hall come in to eat, and he made up the cashew chicken, and deboned the chicken, breaded it, fried it, and then made sauce for it, and he gave it to them to try and see if they liked it. Because there's a new dish he was trying out, to see if he could bring more people in, and they wound up just loving it. And the next day, the entire City Hall came by to eat and asked him to fix cashew chicken for them, and that's kind of how it got started.
So that's how it got started. Unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, you read about and hear about cashew chicken. I saw right up in the New York Times about this place. It's known kind of all over the world. I've heard people that have traveled to China. Someone told me they saw a sign that said Springfield cashew chicken somewhere in China.
Well, yes. My brother and my dad were traveling through Hong Kong, and they saw that on a sidewalk billboard. And the reason I think that happened was because a documentary group out of China came into America to film a documentary talking about how Asian influences, Chinese Asian influences, changed the culinary background of the United States. And they came in and interviewed my dad, and they probably showed that program in China, and then everyone was trying to scramble, what is this cashew chicken thing that my dad had invented, and that's where I think it came from. Yeah, but it's amazing. Some people say that, well, cashew chicken is not really Chinese food. It's how my dad adapted to the region of Springfield, Missouri. And in Chinese cooking, you hear of the Hunan province, Cantonese style, Sichuan style. I look at it, my dad created Springfield-style province, so he adapted to the taste of the Ozarks. And that's how I feel like cashew chicken and the other dishes that he adapted to the American palate at that time.
Wing, thank you for that. How did you guys get into this business? I mean, heaven knows you came by it naturally. But Ling, you're the oldest brother, correct? The oldest sibling. What did you do to begin with? You say you were with Cisco, a food service company, for a long time. Tell me about your history with culinary.
Well, I think basically we didn't have a whole lot of choice working in the restaurant. Growing up, start out working there and wasn't paid for a few months. And I asked my dad, I said, how come I'm the only employee that doesn't get paid here? And he said, well, you got a roof over your house and food to eat, don't you? So, I said, yeah, I guess so. That's pay, but I think I'm going to quit. And he finally agreed to pay me, and I worked at the family restaurant for many years before I finally got tired and wanted to try something else, and went to work for Cisco Food Service, which was a great experience, learning the other side of the business of selling to restaurants instead of being a restaurant. And it was really a fun job, and I enjoyed it a lot, and finally retired from there and came back to Leong's Asian Diner, and here I am again.
It just kind of lures you back in, doesn't it? So Wing, you really kind of have always had your focus on being behind in the kitchen, doing the cooking. You're the executive chef here. How did you get started in culinary? I'm sure you did the same thing as Ling. Dad got you in here to the restaurant, correct?
Dad got us into the restaurant, and in fact, minimum wage was $1.60 at that time, and my dad paid me $1 an hour. And that's why I figured my dad had so many children, and it was cheap labor at that time. But we got education of cooking that we never would have gotten anywhere else. But when I was 20, I decided to see if the grass was greener. I've always had an interest in photography. And 23, I moved to Santa Barbara, California to attend Brooks Institute of Photography to become a photographer. And while I was going to school, it was just natural for me to work in all the restaurants in Santa Barbara. But the plus side was I got to work with world-class chefs and world-class restaurants and got education in culinary I never would have ever obtained here. And they kept on dangling the carrots, in front of me, saying, "You want to be the chef?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting ready to graduate school." But then they would bring in a new chef, and I'd have to train him, and they would pay him 3 to 4 times what they were paying me. And I finally said, "Well, that kind of sucks." So I took over chef positions in Santa Barbara, and I was running restaurants in Santa Barbara, and got to cook for a lot of numerous famous people, from Julia Childs to Michael Jackson to Eddie Van Halen. Just there's constant, famous people always coming by all the time into Santa Barbara. And then it wasn't until 95 that my dad called me up and said, "I need you to come back to help run the restaurant." And that's when I came back to help run the restaurant at the Leong's Tea House in 97. And unfortunately, I was there for 2 years, and my mom had passed away, and my dad said, "Well, I've had enough," and closed the restaurant and gave me 2-day notice. And he said, "Well, you can go back to California now." But from there on, I worked in restaurants in Springfield, from cartoons to Epicurean to I was the opening chef for Flame Steakhouse, and then I was a sous chef at Hickory Hills Country Club and Millwood Country Club, and I was also the opening chef for Fire and Ice. And after working all these other restaurants, I decided, I need to try to work for myself again. And that's when my dad, at the age of 90, he had a health scare, and he kind of agreed with me and said, "It's time we opened up Leong's again." And in 2010, we opened up Leong's Asian Diner, and it was a crazy opening. This restaurant only seats 100 people, and we were doing 1,000 covers a day for the first 3 months. It was great to be blessed like that, but almost too blessed. But and we're still carrying that tradition now.
My goodness. What a history. I have a sneaking suspicion your dad was secretly really hoping that maybe somebody would open the restaurant. You changed the name. It went from the Tea House to Leong's Asian Diner. Did you keep the recipes a lot like it was back in the day in the original restaurant?
Well, I didn't want it to be called Leong's Tea House 2, but all the recipes were all the same. And that was back then when my dad did the restaurant. There was no one that you could buy pre-made egg rolls or Chinese foods. Everything was made from scratch. And that was our client base. And that was the formula that my dad created for the tea house. And I felt like that was what we had to do here at Leong's Asian Diner. It's maintain the same recipes that my dad started, and we cook everything from scratch. And it is very labor intensive, but my customers would kill me, and probably my dad too, if I changed the recipes, And that was the formula for my dad's success. And very few restaurants now is still, maintain those kind of standards of cooking from scratch everything.
Well, the food here is amazing. How did you add things to the menu to sort of broaden it a little bit? I don't remember the original tea house menu particularly, but did your dad have some of the things? I mean, I see you have burgers and all sorts of things on your menu now.
Right. We also have where the East meets West. We do on the weekends a dry aged 12-ounce soy lime marinated ribeye with loaded baked potatoes, grilled vegetables. We did occasionally do different specials. And in fact, this year I'm looking at revamping some of the menu items. When we first started, when we first opened, I had a lot of authentic Chinese cuisine in there, and everyone kept on ordering just cashew chicken, and I was feeding all that to the staff. But I'm trying to bring it back in now. I think a lot more people are wanting to try different things. I have some new items that we're going to try on the menu, and hopefully they'll expand it to be a true Asian food. Yeah.
Can you give me a hint?
Yeah. Some of the things I was looking at doing was I was going to do some slow braised pork belly, sweet and sour crispy fish, some rice noodles like a beef mao fun, which is a thick rice noodle stir fry. I'm looking at doing some bang bang shrimp tacos, and even looking at doing an oxtail, and probably trying to lighten things up. I'm going to make a crispy beef salad or a ramen noodle salad, things like that.
Very nice. I notice you have noodle bowls. Have you always had like noodle bowls on your menu, or is that kind of new? It seems like that's just everywhere, and when it's done well, it's really good.
Right. We used to have a yakame noodle, which is a Chinese-style noodle, but everyone seems to like the ramen noodles, and we added some ramen noodles, and we'll probably add a pork belly ramen noodle to the new menu, too.
Can I make a request?
Sure. What was that?
Okay, I've got a menu item for you guys. And if Wing, if you can't just figure it out on your own, and I'm sure you can, Ling, you can get with your food service people and tell them you need the ingredients. I was in Las Vegas this time last year, and I went to a restaurant called Shang. It's not fancy. It's in a strip mall. It was fantastic. I had a dish called Dan Dan Noodle. You ever hear of something called Dan Dan Noodle?
I have. I believe those noodles are a little bit thicker than what we typically use here.
Well, let me throw this in. The guys in the back would pull these noodles and they'd swing them and then they would cut them and whatever, but the noodles are one thing. I guess it's the Dan Dan. I mean, my daughter and I were joking. I was like, well, I don't know who Dan is, but God bless him. This is the best thing I've ever eaten. But it was a beef, almost like a ground beef or pork. I don't remember which, but it was the most delicious sauce with almost a hint of like a cinnamon or a nutmeg in it, if that makes sense. Anyway, do your research on that one and call me, and I'll help you, and I will be here to eat. That is good stuff. But I love that you take chances on different items. Do you do specials, like a daily special, just to see how things kind of go?
Well, we don't do daily specials as much as we do like a lot of weekend specials, and like my brother Wing was talking about, we do the dry aged ribeye. People love it. They say it's probably the best steak in town, and then also our burgers are all handmade, and we have a lot of people that come in just eat our burgers because they say we got the best burgers in town also. So it's kind of amazing that a Chinese restaurant would have some of the best American foods around.
But as authentic Chinese goes, you guys are incredible at it. What are some of the dishes you're most proud of?
Well, it'd probably be the general chickens that we do. Other than cashew chicken, it's usually our cashew chicken is number one, and then it's either sweet and sour chicken or general chicken that we make. And then, of course, our noodle dishes are wonderful. We do our beef or shrimp lo meins and our pad thai noodle. We do a pad thai noodle too for a wonderful dish. And our stir fries, they're all. We use top grade beef. We use beef tenderloin, and most everyone else uses a cheap skirt steak or something else, but we use a beef tenderloin. That was the beef that my dad used in the original restaurant, and I couldn't change that. So we use a top grade beef tenderloin for our stir fries.
Well, you have a lovely menu. Everything looks so good, and to hear that it's all, house made and fresh makes everything so much better.
In the restaurant business, you never know when your restaurant will be packed with customers. Hi, this is Nathan from Arctic Food Equipment. Now is the best time to schedule a tune-up of your equipment. When our factory-trained technicians come out, they will make sure your belts are tight, your ice machine is clean, and it passes health inspection, and that your stove is cooking just right. We not only have a parts department, but also a huge 10,000 square foot showroom too. Call your local family-owned restaurant supply company, Arctic Food Equipment, at 1501 South Enterprise.
At Arctic Food Equipment, your success is our business always.
Well, we also sell some of our sauces, to online, and also several of the grocery stores here in town, Hy-Vee, Food for Less, the Price Cutters, Harder Houses, and we get quite a following on that, and we have a lot of people that they moved away. And they, come back here and they want to, have cashew chicken in Texas or wherever they move to, and they buy a lot of our sauces and stuff.
Was that a big decision to get into the business of making and selling sauces? But I'm sure you had people clamoring for you to do that, right?
Right. People kept on asking, and actually they would ask us, we would just ship them food, and we would occasionally have to freeze everything and then put it in a thermal box and ship it to them. And we thought, it's such a high demand, why don't we get someone to make our sauces and bottle it, and that's what we did. And it makes it a lot easier to have our dish sent to anywhere in the country.
Well, God bless you for doing that, because if you need your fix, you need your fix, Talk about your desserts. Don't you have some kind of a cheesecake dessert that you're particularly proud of?
Well, we do what's called a pineapple mango upside down cake that we make. Our cheesecakes, we kind of rotate in different cheesecakes from a good cheesecake manufacturer here in town. Other things that we make a creme brulee, which is a classic creme brulee. We have chocolate lava cake and a few other desserts that we do occasionally bring in. And in fact, right now we have a limoncello ricotta cheesecake that we're selling right now, and so I try to bring in some different desserts and who doesn't like desserts? And as far as making fresh foods, all our appetizers, our pot stickers, our crab rangoons, wontons, all hand folded, and our number one signature dish was appetizers are our classic egg rolls that my dad started, and they are handmade. It's filled with pork, shrimp, and cabbage, and it has a secret ingredient that most people wonder about. He puts peanut butter in it. And that was our secret recipe. It binds it all together. And we do so many egg rolls right now that we're rolling close to 1,000 egg rolls a week. So for the holidays, we doubled up on that. It takes a 2-day process just to make the mix to do the egg rolls. And then we have to roll them all. I'm lucky I have some Asian ladies that back there are good at doing the handiwork. Me, I roll the egg roll. It looks like a lopsided burrito. But these ladies that they help me with the egg rolls and the appetizers, each one of them looks like it was made by machine. And it's a signature dish that is very labor intensive, but and one that tastes our egg rolls. Says it's the best in town. And we also make all the condiments. We make our house-made plum sauce, our hot mustard, all the things that we do for our dishes is all usually made from scratch.
Fantastic. Ling, what is your title here at the restaurant?
Dishwasher sometimes. Just depends on what needs to be done. We're Wing and I, we're both the managing owners here, so we whatever needs to be done. If someone doesn't show up for work, I guess we're called in and we have to do whatever needs to be done. We also do a lot of catering, and just you have to have more than one title because you're always doing different things in this business, from washing dishes to cooking to serving tables sometimes, so it's just,
Are you any better at rolling egg rolls than your brother?
probably a little bit, but not a lot, That's one of the things, we almost thought about not doing the egg rolls because they're so labor intensive, but we thought, no, we have to do it because that's my dad's recipe, and we're glad we did it now. That's why what sets us apart from a lot of these other Chinese restaurants, because they don't, hardly any of them make their own egg rolls. They just buy a frozen egg roll from a vendor because it is so labor intensive that, they don't want to put up with it. So, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned the peanut. You do know that peanut butter is it does mention that on your website. So it's not that big of a secret that the peanut butter is in, or maybe it's on your menu.
Unfortunately, with all the allergies now, and we were very good at accommodating allergies. Back then, 10 years ago, when someone asked me, is it gluten-free? I would have said, I didn't even know he was in jail. And now we have dishes that are gluten-free, and we accommodate other ailments. The newest one is alpha-gal syndrome, and I try to train my staff. I'm in the chef association, so I try to keep up on top of everything with the trends and health issues. So we're one of the few restaurants that try to accommodate all our guests, and I think we do a really good job at it.
Let me just say for the record, and I've never mentioned this before, but I have alpha-gal, right. And I was diagnosed last summer. I have no symptoms at all, but I tested positive for it, and you're not supposed to have any red meat products, nothing from a mammal. So I've had to forego a lot of really good food. I've eaten a lot of chicken and seafood since I was diagnosed. So if you figure out the Dan thing, could you do it with chicken for me? But I'm very fortunate, but there are people who really, really have it bad. And to know that you're one of the restaurants that will take care of those diners, but that's why you put peanut butter on the menu, because people need to realize that it's there. What do you eat when you're not eating here? Do you guys cook at home? Ling, you're giggling over there. Are you like, I'm done. I can't cook another thing. Like, what do you like to eat? Where do you like to go?
Well, we all like Chinese food, but sometimes, we like something different. I'll go out and have a burger, and growing up, I think my dad used to call Wing a hamburger boy because he went through more burgers than any of us. So, yeah, we like, there's, our motto is, if it doesn't eat me first, I'll eat it. So, it's pretty much anything you set in front of us.
Do you cook at home?
Not much anymore, because I'm always here at the restaurant. When you're working here all the time, and I just don't really have the desire or opportunity to cook at home.
I would imagine that would be sometimes a challenge. Ling, what about you?
I always make staff meals for everyone. Whether it's enchiladas or tacos. In fact, I made a mushroom smothered pork chop for everyone the other day, and so, in fact, with my background being in Santa Barbara and half my staff being Hispanic, I learned to cook a lot of Hispanic dishes, and sometimes I think I'm half Hispanic because, if I'm not eating Chinese food, I'm either eating Hispanic foods. At some of the numerous restaurants in town have my favorites. But I enjoy cooking other cuisine. I was trained when when I was in Santa Barbara, I had the pleasure of working with French chefs, which is your classic culinary background. I worked with Italian chefs, German chefs. So I felt like I have an associate degree in all these other genres of culinary and a master in Asian. So I enjoy cooking other dishes, and I felt like I can do almost as good Italian food as any of the other Italian restaurants in town.
So from Italian to Mexican, obviously to Chinese, it's quite the international diet that you have going on here. All sorts of great food.
Right. I enjoy doing that. I make a killer lasagna that most people don't know about. But in fact, when I was running specials, I do a chicken fried steak. Growing up, my babysitters were American, and I got to eat with their grandmothers. And when I was cooking in Santa Barbara, I had cooking some comfort foods for some of the staff, and everyone wondered, how does a Chinese guy know how to make a chicken fried steak or a chicken pot pie or chicken and dumplings? And I said, well, that's what I grew up with. And so I enjoy doing comfort foods like that too.
So the places you worked in Santa Barbara, where was the place where all the celebrities would come into? Because I'm itching to know what Michael Jackson wanted to eat.
Well, Michael Jackson had I never actually saw him. His ranch hand always came down from his Never Land and would order all the food. And we always joked, someday we'll get to see him and visit him. But his ranch hand would call up and ask for all his food, and then we would send it all with him back to Michael Jackson. And I worked at the Harbor Restaurant and several other restaurants, Steamers in town. So a lot of the restaurants I worked at were some of the top restaurants in Santa Barbara at that time, and it was an experience that I'll never forget, and I'm so blessed to have experienced all that.
Do you still love photography as much as you did when you went out there to go to school?
Yeah, I just, unfortunately, it's been on my back burner, but I'm getting back into it now. I just bought a new digital camera, and I just need to spend more time shooting.
Well, heaven knows you've got enough going on right here, right now. But you mentioned on your bio on your website that you learned stuff from Julia Child. You rubbed elbows with Julia Child. You learned from her. The American Culinary Federation, I believe, is where you met her. Is that correct?
Right.
At a meeting or something?
She was a member of the Santa Barbara American Culinary Federation, which I was also a member, and we made her an honorary member. And she was a great lady that would always introduce different chefs or up and coming chefs to her program. And one time I had the pleasure of cooking for her. I was working at a new restaurant. I was the sous chef, and the chef was. We fretted about it for like 3 days. The menu that Julia Childs is coming in with her entourage, and we had this 6-7 course meal waiting for her, and she finally showed up. And the first course went out. It was a soup. I forget what kind of soup it was, but anyway, we had all these appetizers coming out next, and we go to the waiter. Okay, first course is done. We're getting ready to send out the scallops on the second course. Are they ready for it? And the waiter comes back and says, Julia's in the bathroom. So we wait about 10 minutes. And he said, man, we got to get these appetizers out. They're hot, it's going to be cold, And all of a sudden the waiter comes back and goes, Julia Childs is in the bathroom and she's throwing up.
No.
Yeah. And all of our faces just dropped. And we go, the chef, we were looking at all the food, and to taste everything. We go, wait a minute, we only served one dish yet, and we go, and I was thinking, oh my God, if we kill Julia Childs, this is not going to look good on my resume, And Then all of a sudden the door opens up, and Julia Childs pokes her head in and goes, "Everything is okay. I'm just an older lady. I've been drinking on the airplane. I didn't feel good." And she's been drinking on the airplane from New York to Santa Barbara, and then she started eating rich food, and it got her stomach upset, and it was like, "Oh my God!" We just ducked that one, and then the rest of the food came out, and she said, "Just bring the rest of the food." And she all shook our hands, and it was an incredible experience.
Well, if she was a little hungover, that would have been a really good time to spring the cashew chicken on her with the gravy. She needs a little protein going on there.
Yeah, that would have been the time.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for all you do for Springfield and feeding the hungry folks who love us some cashew chicken. I mean, we fly that flag when we travel. People from Springfield, we go all over the world. They say, "Tell me about Springfield." We always bring up cashew chicken. Always. Silver Dollar City even has a version of cashew chicken in a waffle cone. Did you know that? No. That's their homage to our area for people who haven't visited. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts in keeping this tradition going. I know your dad is so proud of you. He passed away a few years ago, but he started something great, and you say that this restaurant isn't just a place for people to get great food. This is a place for milestones that people celebrate, generations of people.
Right. It's unbelievable. So many people had worked at a restaurant at one time. You wouldn't believe that, hey, I was a busboy or I was a dishwasher, and they come back 20, 30 years later, or there was their first date. It was their engagement. It's incredible. We were just not only just good food, we were part of their lives, and that's why it was a big part of our formula. It's just incredible. That was what my dad did, to be that part of, to be that in tune with the community, and be part of the community. So. That was a secret to our success, I believe.
To this day.
Yeah. Well, what's amazing is we have so many people come in and say, at Leong's Tea House, this is where my wife and I had our first date. And now we've been married, 50 years or however long. And working at Leong's Tea House, I remember, after working there for 20 some odd years, I would see people come in and they say, "Hey, Ling, remember me? I used to wash dishes for you. My son wants a job here. Do you mind? Could you find him a place to work?" And I said, "Sure." And now the Leong's Asian Diner, I have the grandkids come in looking for jobs. So it kind of makes me feel old now.
Funny thing is, I know 3 couples that I put together that are now married here from the restaurant. Either they worked here or they came here for one of my chef's meetings, and now they're married. It's funny. I feel like a little Cupid sometimes.
You're a matchmaker too. I had no idea.
It's just funny that committed to the community, and I enjoy. It's about the people, and that's what this restaurant's about.
Well, and I see you at so many food events, different community events where you can get a taste of this and a taste of that and get to know the chefs and the food. Do I understand right that you are or were involved at OTC and the culinary program maybe, or just the college?
Well, I'm on the culinary advisory board.
Gotcha.
So, and occasionally they bring me in for world-class cuisine to teach Mexican. No, actually Chinese.
Oh. Hey, listen, you may regret having said that, because Pliska may call you up, the chef over there that's in charge may call you up and say, "You know what? You said you make the best lasagna. Well, maybe you can do that too." And you mentioned enchiladas, so you better be careful what you say.
Well, it's funny thing is, I've been trained with traditional French cuisine, and every time I do a different dish, like a classic French dessert or a classic French dish, they wait till I'm done, and then they go, when is he going to start cooking Chinese? So I try to stick with my roots, and I'll put a little spin on it. So I have fun with it. I enjoy doing these community events. It gets me out to actually see the customers and see the people and talk to them and let them enjoy the food, and I enjoy cooking for them.
Wing Leong and Ling Leong and family keeping it going. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joy, for having us.
Thank you.
Be sure to go to AroundTheOzarks.com to sign up for our daily newsletter where you can get every episode of Savor the Ozarks, plus all our other podcasts, events, and contests straight to your inbox. And what are your favorite dishes in the 417? Do you have any restaurants you'd like me to visit? Email me at joy@AroundTheOzarks.com.